Have you ever shown up to the office, ready to go, ready to grab your cup of coffee, and you've just noticed nobody has put on the pot of coffee yet, and it causes you a little irritation? Or maybe you're sitting at home on your computer and the web page just takes half a second too long, and you feel this little bit of irritation rise up. Whether it's little things like this or big things, the Four Noble Truths can really help us understand more about life, more about the cause of our suffering, the cessation of suffering, the path leading to the cessation of suffering. And in this video, we're going to explore the Four Noble Truths applied in real life and understood through the lens of a modern experience. The first noble truth is that there is suffering, right? It's very simple, very easy. And this doesn't just mean big suffering, huge suffering, like getting into a car accident, losing a loved one, getting your heart broken, all of this huge stuff and the little things, right? It includes all these huge things, and it includes the tiny, minor problems that we face every single day. I used to think suffering had to be huge, right? I remember back when I lived in Kenya, from 5 to about 9 years old, I lived in Kenya. And I was playing on this gate, swinging on this gate. This man used to come, or, this older person used to come who was a family friend. And he'd, pick me up, put me on the gate. I would hold on to the gate, and then I would, just swing back and forth. And that just used to be really fun for me. And one day, as I was swinging back, right? These are my arms. Oh, you can't even see. These are my arms on the bar. And as I am swinging backwards, coming back, I let go, right? My grip loosens, and then I fall right onto, my belly, face down. And my tongue was sticking out. And I literally closed my teeth around my tongue, and my tongue, had a big cut in it from that fall. And so I remember my dad come in, he picked me up, I'm bleeding. People are trying to give me water to wash it, to just gurgle in my mouth and spit out, but the blood wouldn't stop. My dad came and got me. We got in the taxi, we went to the hospital. And in the hospital, we couldn't afford anesthesia. And so I just remember grown man hands in my mouth, just pulling my mouth apart. And then I remember the surgeon going in and stitching my tongue back together, right? And this was tremendous amount of pain, right? Just a lot of pain for, a child to experience. And I used to think this was suffering, right? These huge, painful, traumatic kinds of experiences is suffering. And I used to not correlate, running out of coffee as suffering. Sure, it was a little annoyance and something that you had to take care of, right? Or the internet taking too long to load, right? The web page taken. I used to not see it as suffering. I used to just see it as, an inconvenience. But as I have developed in my understanding, the Four Noble Truths, right? When it talks about suffering, it isn't talking about just these huge, painful, traumatic experiences. It's talking about everyday experiences when things go wrong. And even when things don't go wrong or right, there is suffering inside. In a quiet moment, have you ever had some existential dread come up, some confusion, some irritation, maybe dissatisfaction with life? And these questions of why am I here? But those questions being tinged with a sense of dissatisfaction or deception or just kind of this negative connotation. And so this suffering, right, it doesn't even depend on anything happening externally. Nothing has to go wrong for you to just in a quiet moment, obviously nothing's happening, to have these feelings of dissatisfaction. This is suffering. This is the spectrum of suffering, from the subtlest to the biggest, right? To the grossest, to the hugest. Vipassana helped me really understand why these little things are suffering as well. And not to sound over dramatic, not to sound like, oh, my coffee ran out. Oh, I'm so sad. Everything is gone. There's so much suffering in the world, right? It's not to have this understanding, but really it's the inner world of why is it that I have this reaction of irritation or dissatisfaction when somebody has not made a pot of coffee. It literally takes, 30 seconds to set up the stuff and then waiting a few minutes for it to be done. Why is it causing me these negative feelings inside? And this is what Vipassana really allows you to see the side of, to not just accept these nuanced inconveniences as outside of what you are trying to solve, right? In Vipassana, when it says Vipassana is the way to come out of suffering, it's not just the big, huge sufferings. It's not just the once in a lifetime or a few times in a lifetime, right? Like getting divorced, maybe it won't happen to you. It might happen once or twice, right? And so it's not just about preparing for these huge things. It's also preparing for the more subtle things. It's solving these subtle dissatisfactions. That is the first noble truth, the truth of suffering big and small in life, and it will be there with you until you start to work on it, until you start to work on the problem. And in order to start working on the problem, you must understand what the problem is. And you must understand what causes the problem. And this happens, of course, as you're meditating. You're doing all these noble truths together as you're doing your practice. But, we talk about them as individual pieces and like one leading to the other. But in your practice, it's all happening at the same time. The second noble truth is the cause of suffering. What causes my suffering? If you have been to a 10-day Vipassana course, Goenka talks a lot about craving and aversion being the cause of suffering. Why? Why is that, right? It's very easy to just merely accept, again, like Goenka loves to say, to merely accept at the intellectual level, to merely say, well, I believe. Why is it that craving and aversion lead to suffering? So before that, again, before we even understand that, we got to understand what causes suffering. Where does it come from? And I'm going to just try to explain this. It's a little, I'm still like working on it, but just bear with me and hopefully it makes sense. And let me know in the comments if what I'm about to say makes sense and like really you understand what I'm saying. This life right here is an outcome of the process of reality, of the process of the universe, of the process of this matter, this energy, doing what it does, being this complex thing to function as this life. Very easy to understand. The other thing to understand is that process, the process of the universe, the process of this body, the process of these energies, it has rules. And those rules, Goenka loves to refer to it as Dhamma, right? As the law of nature, the law of reality. And that law has its own rules and regulations. For instance, when it comes to your body, right? Let's say you have two things. You have a bowl of vegetables. And then on the other hand, you have a bowl of candy, right? Let's just say. You will eat the vegetables. Your body will process the vegetables. You will eat the candy. Your body will process the candy. Your body will process the vegetables, be able to get tons of minerals and vitamins. Your body will process the candy, will be able to get lots of carbs and sugar. Of course, some minerals, and in the broccoli, of course, some carbs and sugar as well. What determines which one is healthier? What determines that the vitamins and the minerals inside the broccoli are beneficial and your body is able to incorporate more resources from these broccoli, these veggies, to be able to like produce and do more within the body. And that from the candy, it can extract a lot of energy, but not too much resources, not too much vitamins and minerals like this. That, to just give a simple answer, is like it just has been self-determined by the nature of the body, the nature of all the chemicals and the makeup of this particular body determines that it gets energy from that and resources, and these are the resources that it used to do the functions that it needs. And so what determines that this, is better, it has more efficient energy, it has more resources that create better connections inside and all this kind of good stuff, is self-determined by the nature of the body, right? Imagine if this body, was a big blue whale. It wouldn't eat vegetables really, or if it was like a lion, right? Or if it was a different kind of animal. Or imagine instead of, being a carbon-based life form, this was a silicon-based life form. It would just have completely different requirements and uses of materials and all this kind of stuff, different relationships. But because this body is this particular way, in this particular design, with these particular processes within, out of that, out of its own nature of what it is, determines that this bowl of vegetables is good, for lack of a better word, and that this bowl of candy is not as good. I'm not going to say it's bad, right? You still can get lots of energy from it, lots of mental pleasure and all that kind of good stuff. But when it comes from a strictly resource perspective, this gives you much more complex, nuanced resources, and this gives you very simple energy. What determines that is just the nature of, the process that the body is, right? Another example, let's take your social relationships, right? What determines that if you're a good person, you treat people with respect, you're really loving, you are caring for other people, if you have those kinds of qualities, people will be attracted to you and people will want to be around you. On the other hand, you're very hateful, very tense, always creating a ruckus, disturbing other people all the time, harming other people all the time. What happens is people will not want to be around you, right? People will learn, oh, hey, this person's pretty destructive. This person's pretty toxic. I need to stay away. What determines that, really, right? It's just the nature of the social fabric. Like every single human has determined and have processes within that determines this is what they like. Humans generally like safety and things that keep them, what they are, keeps their life going, and they dislike dangerous things that takes away their life or tries to harm them in any way. And so all these rules, right, have, by the nature of what it is to be social, right? We're only social for the benefit of each other. We live together, right? I'm making this YouTube video, you're listening to it. Somebody made this camera that I am, recording this video on because they were like, hey, this could be good for somebody. And in my case, it's good for me. So I'm using this. And so it's this mutual benefit, right? This is the nature of socialness, is this mutual benefit that we are getting from having a relationship with one another. And that itself is what, these social ties and these social rules come from outside of our own will. And we have to adhere to what those rules are, right? I can't tell myself I'm going to be mean and rude to people and people are going to love me. Like, I can't change that rule, but I can live in alignment with that rule. Similarly, when it comes to my body, I can't say, well, I want candy to be the healthiest thing for my body. I can't change that rule, but what I can do is live in alignment with what is good for my body. And so also when it comes to mental and emotional things, right, it has its rules, it has what is good for it, what is not good for it, and we try to live in alignment with it. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So leave a comment down below if what I just said made sense. There's a law, and if we live in alignment with it, we are benefited. If we live not in alignment with it, if we live against it, then we will suffer. And this is something Goenka also mentions throughout the discourses is you follow the law, you live in alignment with the law, you will be rewarded. If you go against the law or you don't follow the law, you will get punished right then and there. That's something along those lines. And so that's how that law, how I have come to understand that law. Now, you don't have to be a Vipassana meditator to know these rules, right? To know what's good for your body, what's good for your mind, what's good for your emotions, right? If you have just, have some level of common sense, some level of functioning brain, as you have lived life, you've come to realize these things, right? There are things that my body needs. If I want it to be healthy, I have to do X, Y, and Z. My mind needs this. I got to do this. My social life needs this. We have this knowledge, at least, of this is the law and this is the way that we should live. This is where craving and aversion come in. And that is, what is it if we have this knowledge of the law, if we have the knowledge of what we need to do to take care of ourselves, take care of our families and friends, take care of our emotions, take care of our minds, if we have all this knowledge, what keeps us from doing that, from doing those things that we know are good for us? This is where craving and aversion come in. It is craving and aversion that makes us go against this wisdom, our own wisdom of what we have come to learn is good for us and not good for us. And here's an example I'll give, right, with doom scrolling. I just love doom scrolling because it's one of the things that I struggle with, and it just doesn't make any sense to me, right? And of course, I'm making progress on it. So with doom scrolling, and for those that don't know, it's just where you put on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or something, and you're just there for hours, just scrolling and scrolling, not really thinking, and bam, a few hours later you're out and you're like, what did I just do? Was that the best use of my time? At least that's my experience. So let's bring this aversion, craving, the law, nature, all of this stuff together in this example. When, I know if you were to ask me, I have this knowledge. Doom scrolling, there's way better uses of my time. There's other things that I can do that'll make me feel way more fulfilled, feel more engaged with others, feel happier. Guaranteed, right? I've had, for me personally, I've had enough experiences where I know the hours that I spent doom scrolling, if I spent being social, if I spent reading a book, if I spent doing anything else productive, I would feel way better, right? I'd just feel way better, and that's the truth. And I, don't need to hide from that. So I have this knowledge, and yet every day I struggle with doom scrolling. Every day I struggle with it. I fight it, of course. What makes me lose? What makes me lose the fight? What makes me give in? Doom scroll, doom scroll, doom scroll, doom scroll. Feel not so great, go to bed tired, go to bed frazzled, go to bed too late. Oh, maybe I could have done the laundry, I didn't do the laundry, or I could have washed the dishes, didn't do that. I could have made a YouTube video, I didn't do that. I could have done this and that. And it is craving and aversion, right? So I come home from work, I, have a snack or a meal. And then this urge comes, this urge of get some food or pick up the phone, pick up the phone, open YouTube, do whatever you want. Just get it. And it first starts off as, just a little whisper, it's like, oh, you could. Sometimes I fall just for that whisper. I'm like, say less. You don't need to say anymore. I got it. I'm out. I'm pulling it. Sometimes I resist it a little bit. I'm like, no, I'm going to try to do this and that. And then it gets a little louder, right? It's like, all right, hey, grab that phone, right? Just open it. It's fine. Just open it. Just pick it up. Just pick up the phone. It's going to be fine. And sometimes I resist that. Sometimes I give into that. And then essentially it just gets stronger. That urge gets stronger and stronger. And then bam, I'm overcome. And so if we slow that down, what's happening is, right, this urge comes. And then if I am reacting, if I feel craving towards it, which the YouTube algorithm, the Facebook algorithm, they have been designed in a way to really stimulate this craving, right? This dopamine hit, as you had so much in the past, and now you want to reach for it to try to replicate that dopamine hit. there's a whole science behind what is actually happening inside our minds. And essentially, what's happening, what I experience it at is I am craving this experience, right? I'm craving, or I'm having an aversion towards not using my phone, to missing out on the dopamine hit. And so these cravings and these aversions, right? They're both happening at the same time as I'm having this impulse to reach for my phone. And when they overpower me is when I whip out the phone and start using it. So the reason why craving and aversion or is the cause of our suffering, or why Goenka says, it is the cause of our suffering, is because craving and aversion is what makes us let go of our knowledge, of our internal knowledge, of the laws, of the things that we should be doing, the things that we want to be doing, the things that have given us happiness and joy in the past and kept us from dissatisfaction. It is when the feelings, when whatever the situation is, when the craving and aversion for or against that thing overpowers this wisdom that we are trying to live and this person that we want to be. And so what makes us break the law, what makes us be ignorant to the law, what makes us powerless to the law, is our craving and aversion, is when that emotion, those feelings, those impulses get so strong that they overpower us. And that's why it's said that craving and aversion is the cause of suffering. And this leads us to the third noble truth, is the cessation of suffering, the end of suffering. Now knowing that there's a law that we got to follow, and when we break that law, because of aversion or craving, then we get this consequence of suffering. Now we know there is a way. It is possible to end suffering because we can control, we can teach our minds, we can train our minds to not get overpowered by craving and aversion. And this is really where Vipassana comes in. Vipassana comes in. We are observing our physical sensations and we are remaining equanimous. We are not reacting to whatever sensations we might be feeling, right? So on a very gross level, for instance, some pain comes on your knee as you're sitting. You're training yourself in Vipassana to not react, to feel the pain and to try to just objectively observe there is pain. Don't hate the pain, don't love the pain, don't go towards the pain, don't run away from the pain. Just observe there is some pain. And then keep scanning your body. And this equanimity is going against the craving and the aversion, right? So when your knee is hurting, you will naturally have this inclination to have aversion towards it, right? To pull away from it, to move your legs, to try to end it, to try to do this, right? And this aversion you can feel in the moment. And so you're directly training yourself with equanimity. The tool of equanimity is teaching you how to not let this impulse, or how to train your brain, your mind, to see this impulse and to not fall in, to not lose the stability of your mind when there is this signal that's coming. You can do something about your craving and aversions and the impulses and how much power it has through equanimity. And the reason Vipassana, at least as taught by S.N. Goenka, gives a heavy emphasis to physical sensations is because physical sensations are most like the feeling. It is a feeling, it is a physical feeling, a sensation. And that if we are training ourselves with a physical feeling, it's easy to translate those skills to an emotional feeling or an emotional sensation, or a mental feeling or a mental sensation, right? Because all of these can be classified as different kinds of sensations. But we're using physical sensations and we're building this equanimity. We're building this non-reactivity. We are fighting against the process of the arising of craving and sensation, which makes us break the laws that the universe has for our minds, our bodies, our socialness, our whatever situation you might think about. And we're directly working with it in Vipassana. So, just to recap, the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering, can come about when we learn to overcome, when we learn to work with the experiences that we have without having these cravings and aversions that overpower us. And again, I just want to highlight, I do not think emotions are bad. I don't think cravings are bad. I don't think wanting to eat a candy bar is bad or anything like that. What is bad, in my understanding, is when you're hopeless, when you're overcome, when you are a slave to your impulses, then you're not living as an intentional being, right? Like, one of the most amazing things about being human is having free will, is having intelligence, is having rational thinking, is having beautiful emotions and love and joy. And to live in alignment with that, we have to live the way that we want to live. And that's the best gift that we have as a human being, is we're able to say, right, I want to make this video right now, or you can sit there and say, I want to listen to this guy talk about the Four Noble Truths, right? This is the freedom of a human being. And to utilize that, to realize that, we have to be in control of our minds. We have to be able to make decisions. We have to be able to do the things that we know we should do, that we want to do deep down. And so we must overcome things that keep us from that. And that mainly, if you can whittle it down, is craving and aversion. When we have cravings for things and it makes us lose the stability of our mind, and then we make decisions and we have actions and we do things that are not in alignment with who we want to be or the things that we want to do, that's the problem. So understanding the cessation of suffering, and that there is a way to come out of that. There is a way to stop the process of multiplication, to stop the process of habitual reactivity, is very essential. And this leads to the fourth noble truth, is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. And this path is the eighth noble path. And I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I'll just cover a couple important things that, I've just come to realize in my life. As you practice, as you practice Vipassana, as you gain more wisdom, you gain more power over your mind, your cravings and aversions, they're becoming less and less. As you gain power, as you gain strength, as you gain wisdom, as you gain clarity, you're progressing on the path. And this path that we walk through Vipassana, through meditation, through right effort, morality, right concentration, right wisdom, understanding this path is essential, because what you really come to understand about this path is there is a way to go from here. Like, let's say this is, the laws of the world and our bodies, and this is how we should all live. If it was ideal and we wanted the best outcomes and the best results, we would live like this. And then let's say here is where we are, and there's this distance, there's this distance between how we know we should be living, the things that we want to do, and then our, let's say, maybe our inadequacies, the things keeping us away from it, lack of mental control, just living by impulses, being a very irrational being, all this kind of stuff, right? This is this distance. What happens as you meditate more and more, doing Vipassana more and more, you notice this gap start closing, right? You start to gain more mental clarity. You start to have more strength. You're able to do more things. You're able to tell less lies, right? You get all the eighth noble path, right? You're not telling lies. You're living a moral life. You're not killing people. You're doing your samadhi. You're getting your right concentration, your right effort. You're having your right wisdom, right? Your panya. You're gaining wisdom, experiential wisdom. What happens is they start to feed one another, right? For instance, let's take morality, right? We have this morality, don't steal, don't lie, don't kill, very basic stuff. And as you are walking on the path, right, as you gain more mental strength, you're able to do more of those moral things and less of the immoral things. What do I mean by this? Let's take lying, for example. Why do we lie? Why do we break our morality? Why do we lie? And for me personally, I find I lie when I don't want to face certain consequences, or I want to escape certain consequences, or I'm not ready to deal with some intense emotional feelings. I'm not ready to confront the situation, right? There could be many things, but essentially it is I don't want to feel a certain kind of way that'll come with the consequence of telling the truth in this situation. And it would be more convenient to avoid these feelings that I could open up with the truth by lying. So what will I do? I will lie and I will like brush the thing aside. Sure, maybe later I deal with it, maybe don't deal with it. But really, what's happening here is I am afraid of a feeling or I'm afraid of a consequence. And I'm having this aversion towards this consequence. What happens when I have been doing my Vipassana? If I'm doing my Vipassana daily and I'm practicing 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour at night, first of all, my aversion and my cravings slowly are diminished, right? Not like you go to a 10-day course and you never have any more cravings and aversions, or that you meditate every day for a year and you won't have a single spit of aversion or craving. No, but it does gradually improve. So when it comes to lying, this fear that you have of facing this emotion or facing these consequences, that fear will lessen, right? Because you will find that you have the strength to deal with whatever emotions arise. That's what you're doing every single day in your morning meditation and in your evening meditation. And so as this feeling comes down and this strength, this mental strength, if I can deal with things, increases more, what you'll find is your lying decreases, right? That fear of the consequences starts to go down and you start to tell more truths. Maybe in this situation where you would have lied, now because you've been practicing, daily, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening, now you're less likely to lie for this situation. Sure, for maybe some more intense ones, you'll still lie. But like maybe the lower things that make you lie, maybe those start to go away. And slowly you start to have more and more strength to be able to deal with whatever situations arise, and the feeling of needing to lie or running away from consequences go down. And so your practice now is helping you live a more moral life, right? And we can apply that not just to lying or telling the truth, but to all the other moral, precepts. And then what happens is, because now you're living a more moral person, your actions are more moral, you're telling the truth, you're doing things for the benefit of others. When you come to sit down to meditate, you start to recognize, wow, this meditation, because I am meditating every day, I am able to live a more moral life. So I should take this meditation more seriously. I should really do this, because if I really want to be a noble person, if I want to not lie, right? Like lying just, it hurts. Like every time when you're doing it, at least for me, when I'm doing it, I know what I'm doing isn't what's up. And of course, I know I'm like wanting this convenience or whatever, and I know I'm choosing to prioritize over that, but it does suck then. And then later on, it's just always following you like, oh, maybe it's going to come out. They're going to say, why'd you lie to me? Blah, blah, blah. And then it becomes this whole thing of, running away and kind of doing all this kind of thing that I just personally don't like. And in my ideal world, I would minimize that as much as possible. And in knowing that Vipassana helps me do this, I'm going to try just a bit harder for my samadhi, for my concentration, right? When I come to sit down, when I'm like putting in the right effort, right focus, and all this kind of stuff, I'm going to put in a little more energy, because now I'm more moral. It's supporting and giving me more inspiration and more strength to meditate, right? And so that fuels that. And then, of course, the more that you meditate, the more that you do the right effort, that creates more wisdom, and you're able to like see things more clearly, right? The reason I was able to, understand the Four Noble Truths to the extent that I can explain it this way is because I have been meditating for so long, and I've been gaining wisdom and like understanding things, looking at it from different angles, and being able to say, hey, look, I'm understanding it. Like I am developing my wisdom. I'm able to really see what's happening. And then the more that you're able to see what's happening inside yourself, inside, what is this law? Where are these things that are happening inside of me? Where do they get their nature from? What makes this reaction produce this outcome, and this reaction produces this outcome, right? Like, what is this law? And then you start to study the Dhamma. You start studying, what is the nature of the thing that is producing this experience that I'm having, right? What is this deep process, this universal process that's occurring, that's making me experience the way that I experience what I am experiencing? And then the more that you experience that, the more you're incentivized to live a more moral life, right? You have, again, more strength. You continue to develop more wisdom. You continue to see all the ways that being immoral harms you and isn't even what you want to do. And you're continuing to develop the strength to face those, and then the wisdom to see more clearly. And so again, they are all powering each other. They're all powering each other to create this holistic experience of the path. And this is how you understand, oh, this is the path. This is the eighth noble path, eightfold noble path. This is how it's all connected. This is how it's feeding into each other. And, Goenka did say in, I don't remember which discourse, which day it was, but he said it's like a tripod, right? Morality, samadhi, and panya. They're like a tripod. And for those that don't know, it's morality, samadhi means concentration, and then panya means wisdom. And these three are like a tripod. They all need to be, equal strength, to be able to to be able to be balanced. As long as you remove one, the thing is not balanced anymore, and it's going to be crooked and it's going to fall apart and stuff. And that's how you can understand that, right? That eighth noble path, how it's feeding one another, how it is one is leading to the next, back to the other one, and on, and they're going back and forth. This is the way that I have come to understand it anyway. So this has been the Four Noble Truths of Vipassana that we are following in these 10-day discourses, these 10-day courses. And this is really important to really come to live this in your life and to understand this, right? One of the most beautiful things about the Vipassana and the 10-day retreat experience is that this is a path of life, right? This is a way of life. This is a way to live. This is a way to come at life, to have a systematic approach to understanding, to developing your wisdom, to building your character, to enhancing your emotional experiences, your mental experiences, to be the person that you want to be the person that you couldn't even dream of being. This is what this whole path is about. And so I hope you found this video very helpful. Please, if you found it helpful, subscribe down below. Otherwise, I'd love it if you checked out this video.